B2C clients need this platform strategy because that's where the world is moving. The companies like Amazon or Netflix or Spotify, they are all in the platform business and they are disrupting the market. Airbnb, for example, has disrupted the hotel booking and accommodation market. Amazon has disrupted retail. So one thing that they all have in common is their platform business model. And looking at that, we created, or ThoughtWorks created, this service line to offer the platform strategy consulting to these companies, and I was part of that team. So that's where kind of slowly my interest started beginning in writing, or I was just thinking of first starting to write the blog on these topics. And then when I sat to write a blog, there was like so much to cover. And I was like, okay, let me just turn this into a book. And that's what kind of my idea of this book started, and the journey of this book started from there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And just for those who are joining us, what we'll be doing is we'll be recording it. And for your information as well, most of our views comes from our community where we share this after the show, because most of our viewers are all around the world. We have a large community and our viewers are all around the world. So this particular time may not work for you. So a lot of viewing happens asynchronously. So I'll be recording this show. And another thing I want to bring up is if you have any questions for Tabassum, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. We can make it interactive. The engagement that we get from this is what's going to make it interesting. So feel free to make it engaging. Don't be shy. Just raise your hand and we'll unmute you and bring you on in the show. So for you in the audience, that's for you in the audience. And then finally, I may turn off my video because you are the star of the show, Tabassum, and I'll be just in the background. So if you don't see me, don't be alarmed. It's just that I've turned it off so that we can focus on you as the main star of the show. With that, I wanted to learn a little bit about what was the main inflection point in your career where you were like, okay, this is the field, this is the area of industry that I'm gonna commit to. Like you're actually committing to it when you write a whole book on it. So what was that inflection point for you? Like, this is something I really enjoy. And the reason I'm asking this is because for the readers, for the audience, they may be in the similar shoes. They may be doing product management, general product management, or whatever, and they may want to get some inspiration from how did you decide that this is where I want to commit to this field and I'm going to go deep on it. What was that experience like? Was that a conscious process? Was that something that just happened organically? What was that like? Please share that.
Yeah, so to some extent it was like organically over past few years, but then the trigger, I would say, was when I was working with one of the clients. They're B2B, they're in B2B market, mainly catering to invoice management and pay to procure to pay domain, I would say. And their company had hired my company to build their platform strategy. And surprisingly, their scope was only for engineering and not the product management. And that was kind of a shocking. I was like, how can you build a platform without getting product management involved? And so while doing this, building their strategy alongside with their technical folks, engineering and engineering heads and CTO and other people, I realized that they are keeping this product management totally out, which is the biggest mistake that they are doing. We definitely suggested them that you have to bring in your product organization also in this journey. They agreed to it, but then also getting the product managers or head of product, the buy-in from them and explaining them the importance of platform was kind of a trigger point, I would say, that I kind of thought that, okay, I have to write something in this topic. As I mentioned, I started with a blog, but then it was just too much. So I converted it into a book. So according to me, I think product management is the function that usually bridges the gap between the IT and between the technical side and the business side. And this is one function that was far away from reality and understanding the importance of platform. So I think there was something lacking in that area, which kind of triggered me to write this book. And I wanted to kind of help the community, or maybe make the community aware of the importance of platform and where the industry is moving and how they should also transition from product to platform thinking.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed in the book is you have used a lot of case studies, and I'm personally inspired to be able to use that kind of teaching style in my courses and my case studies as well. What I wanted to learn from you is the specific case study that you have used throughout the book is this classroom platform. Can you tell us a little bit about how that colored your thinking and learning around platform product management?
Yeah, so this is actually people those who have read my bio. So I started a company with my brother actually, Classroom Hunt, and this was initially it was just a search engine for parents for schools, basically new parents who are looking for schools for their kids. This was more of a search platform for them where they can come and based on their cities and localities, they can search school and compare them and explore more details about the school. But we slowly turned that into more of an education platform, which is like educators can come and create the content, and the students and the parents can kind of consume the content. So this is actually, we are in the journey, or we are in the phase of doing this transition. And this is what I have kind of mostly covered in my case study. This pivot also happened, I would say, after COVID, on where we were getting a lot of requests from a lot of educators uh, that can I share things with my students, or is there a way I can reach out to students or a greater audience from your platform? Because people were not able to meet each other on in person because of the pandemic, and this kind of transpired us to pivot to this new platform that I was mentioning, which was more of an education platform where educators can share stuff, information and knowledge with their students and also with parents. So this is the main case study that I have covered in throughout the book, right from doing the research on how to see whether your idea is viable for being a platform or not, and what are the validation steps that you need to do in that particular uh, research phase, and then moving on to actually building and executing the platform is what I've covered as part of the case study in every chapter of the book.
Yeah, that's I found that very helpful to learn the material to use your classroom product examples. So thank you for sharing that. One thing I'm curious about is your background, and for someone who is aspiring to be a product manager and or a platform product manager specifically, what does that look like? Do you need to have a strong technical background to become a platform product manager? Do you need a lot of experience to become? What are the skills and the traits of a platform product manager? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think it's not different from any product manager, I would say. It's just that you have to wear the platform thinking hat. It's just that your horizon increases a lot. So you're not just thinking from one angle. So I'll just give a quick context on when I say platform, what I mean. So the examples that I gave, right, like Airbnb and Amazon or Spotify for that matter. So these are catering to different types of users. In case of Airbnb, homeowners are users as well as the people those who are renting the homes are users. So you have users on both the sides, which was not the case in the traditional product management arena, where it was always somebody booking the hotel would be the user, and there was no concept of homeowner. Similarly, in Spotify, where you have music creators and listeners as the users, right? So changing your mentality from that linear product to this multidimensional platform is what is needed or what is important to be a platform product manager. There is no, I would say, a special course or special training that you can get. It's more based on your experience and learning. It's just that different thinking and way of exploration that you need to be a platform product manager. And again, it can be at different levels, similar to any product manager, that when you are starting, you would be maybe working with one small team of the platform. And then as you grow in your career, you would start creating the strategies for your platform and looking at the growth phase and the maturity phase of the platform. So it's a similar journey It's just that your way of thinking and how you develop the product changes with the platform product management.
Mm. So let's say a linear product a product manager for a linear product is interested in either expanding her skill set or transitioning into a platform role. Do you recommend transitioning to a completely new organization or a product where there is optionality for creating multiple dimensions, or do you recommend that person should advocate for creating a platform strategy for their linear product? What would be easier transition from your point of view?
So I think easier transition from my point of view would be to advocate to in their organization or their product to be a platform. But again, it depends to some extent also on how their organization is structured and how much voice they have, or is it like totally top down, or what they can influence in their organization. So that I would say that would be the easier start, because they already know their domain, they know their business model. It's more of expanding their business model from one side of the users to the other side. One classic example here is, and I've used this example in my book as well, is Walmart Marketplace, where they started with everyone know, right? Like Walmart is biggest retailer in the world, and their users were mainly or were only the consumers. But with Walmart Marketplace, they are using their huge consumer database that they have to create a market for the producers or the sellers to come online and create their stores and sell their products through Walmart Marketplace. So if you are in an industry where you can pivot from a linear product which goes in one direction to this multi-dimensional platform, that would be an easy start, I would say, or that would be a great start, because you know one side of the users already. You don't have to spend time on that side, but then you can educate yourself for the other side and do the transition.
Yeah, no, that's such a good advice, right? Trying to that would also help the organization as well. So that's such a good advice. Thank you for sharing that. One thing that stands out in your book is a platform operating model, and I personally enjoyed reading that a lot. One thing I want to, as I contemplate what platform product management is and how it's different from typical product management, one thing I'm starting to distill my thoughts around is that it does take a lot more focus on agility, collaboration, and stakeholder management. And all of those skills are, especially stakeholder management, comes with some experience. So my mind naturally goes into the place thinking that platform product management requires a level of maturity and patience and political skills, as in how to build consensus, not negative political skills, but consensus building skills. Does that resonate with you, or is there like a room for improvement in the way I'm thinking here? I would love to hear from you on what your thoughts are there.
I think you kind of nailed it, that you definitely need a lot of, I would say, rather than political skill, I would say a lot of convincing and much better communication skills. But as I had mentioned, right, so you can also start with a smaller team if you are at the start of your career. Usually platforms are slightly bigger than a linear product because you have to cater to multiple users and a bigger market than a usual linear product. So you will definitely have multiple teams in that arena. So starting with one team would require less of stakeholder management, but then there would be someone who is managing the end-to-end platform. Will have to definitely have those skills of influencing stakeholders, stakeholder management, and communicating and having a buy-in on their approach and stuff like that. But apart from that, I would say that you or the person will have to shift their thinking completely from the linear way of thinking to when they move to transition to platform product management. And this goes throughout the journey of the product, right? Even during the research or during launch of the MVP, or when you are doing your ongoing backlog prioritization. This thinking has to stay with you, that you are not in a linear world, but you are in this multidimensional world.
One thing that I'm curious about, that was fantastic, by the way, very good articulation. I appreciate the consistent reinforcement of multidimensional world versus a linear world. One thing I want to zoom in on is this concept of tech architecture, microservices, and all of that. Do you recommend people to brush up their microservices and architecture knowledge, or is that is that something that they get a support from their architecture team or technical team? Can you assume that most of the platform product managers have solid architectures along with them side by side, so that they can actually focus on the users and multiple dimensions of the market? Is that true, or do you think that they should actually hone in on their architecture and system design skills? Any thoughts there? I know it's kind of a controversial topic. A lot of people think that they need to know technology, but I'm just trying to glean what's the, where you are in terms of your knowledge and your experience with that space.
Yeah. So I think definitely they will have good support from their tech team or technical side team. But where I think they should understand the system is more from the business side, how the technology is influenced, or how the technical decisions are made based on the business or the domain of the product or the platform. So good that you brought up the microservices architecture piece, right? So what product managers have to understand or should know at least is how these microservices are divided based on the business or the functional capabilities of their product. So for example, if I take an example of a retail platform, right? So their microservices would be divided as product catalog or navigation or promotion and so on and so forth. So that is very functional or very business aspect of the platform. And they should be aware of that this is the division of their microservices. And usually in like a organization that wants to build the right platform, they will have one product owner owning one microservice. And actually, they are not even termed as microservice, they are actually a product. So each of their microservice is a product, it's dealt as a product. They have a self-sufficient team that manages the backlog of that particular microservice and particular capability, I would say. So I like to always refer to them as capabilities. And technically, the architecture or architect can decide how to build or how to make use of that, implement that particular capability. So product managers should be aware of what capabilities their platform has and how their architecture would be designed as per the capabilities that are defined or that are kind of prioritized by the product managers. So this is where I think they should understand that their technical team will take inputs or should take ideally inputs from the product managers on what are the different capabilities and then design the architecture. So it should be a very collaborative team. You cannot just define the requirements in the way it was done in the traditional world, right? And give it to the architecture team and they will come up with design. So it has to be a very collaborative effort between the architect and the product manager when you are designing this platform.
Yeah, so that's very much in line with what I found as well. It is very collaborative. In your experience, have you found PRDs helpful, or do you tell me a little bit about how you communicate this requirement? Is it one big document in the beginning, or is it more like a living document, or is it more like a small segments of stories in some type of a project management tool? What does that look like? What does that communication and handover look like for you in the experiences that you have had?
Yeah. So in my experiences, especially when it's the starting phase of the product, right, or the platform in this case, it's a very, I would say, design-based approach. So it's always the documents or the artifacts are created in tools like Mido or Lucidchart, where you are thinking and creating brainstorming with the architects on, okay, these are the capabilities, and to meet this use case, we have to prioritize these 4 capabilities. And then in next release, we have to prioritize these capabilities. So you work and brainstorm with your architect. So these would be some of the documents or artifacts that would come out, would be more in terms of architecture diagram, capability map that I have created a lot with a lot of my clients. So these are all done in tools like Miro and Mural. Some of them might get translated into architecture blueprint if your stakeholder needs to review it later or stuff like that. But I would say don't get bogged down with a lot of documentation at that stage. It has to be very fluid and very lean. And then you can start documenting it in epics and stories. And that's, you can use any tool, I would say, a project management tool, Jira, Rally, whatever your organization kind of prefers. It can be smaller stories in Word document, that if that's what your team is comfortable with. But keeping it lean is what I would suggest. Start with some of the diagram and things that are easy to digest for everyone. People at the architecture level, people at the team level, and also some business stakeholders. They can relate to, okay, this use case is required, so this capability is required to meet this particular use case. So they can relate to that. And then your team can work, have that big picture in mind when they are working on specific stories. So never lose sight of the vision or your business mission of your platform. And have your team always keep that in sight when they are working on the smaller epics or stories as well. So these are some of the artifacts that I usually like to work with.
Yeah, no, I found this particular diagram very helpful. I don't know if you see this. Would you consider this is your bread and butter for the main like initial brainstorming piece? Is something like this as a starting point? Okay.
Yeah, and I think throughout the book you would see even my MVP and prioritization is done in similar diagrams.
Yeah, very helpful. I found this book super helpful. I was looking for platform product management books for several years, and I couldn't find any good book. Like they're either very technical or they focus a lot on the business and business strategy, but there wasn't a good hybrid between the two. And I'm so glad that you took the time and energy and commitment to create this book. Thank you so much for doing that. One additional question I have, Tabassum, one question I have is, how do you manage stakeholders in your experience? What has worked for you to effectively influence and manage the multiple stakeholders that you have on multiple dimensions of this platform, right? So if you can share some thoughts there, it would really help.
Sure, yeah. So managing stakeholder is, it's never easy. It's always tricky, actually. So I like to use the data-driven approach all the time when kind of talking to the stakeholders. So if you want to convince them on something, or if you want to present to them something, always go with the data. And it's same thing is true for the platform world, I would say, where you have to think of collecting data, collecting metrics right from inception. So when you are thinking of one of specific capability or feature for your platform, also think, how would you measure the performance of that capability? What are the metrics that you want to collect to track that? And going to your stakeholder with that data, if it is, for example, the time of convincing them to prioritize or getting the prioritization or budget for a feature, you would go to them with the data of your research that I have researched, and this particular feature is in demand in market, and it can generate either X number of revenue, or it can improve the customer satisfaction by whatever percentage. So if you go with that data, it helps them to relate or compare different features. And then again, if you're going to them in the later stages on kind of showing the progress of how your feature is doing, if you kind of present it with data, they will understand it better. So rather than just talking in kind of abstract terms, always go with the data and have numbers to back your case. So that's something that I have always found very useful in stakeholder management, that they don't have time to kind of listen to big stories, right? So if you can kind of just articulate it in terms of binary, in terms of numbers, they would relate and understand it pretty quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Since you brought up data, I'm curious about one thing is, let's say, let's say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm building a platform product for writers, people who write books, and it's a multi-sided platform product. It has authors on one side and then ghostwriters on the other side. So in a situation like that, do you recommend your stakeholders or your business executives to focus on building the supply side or the demand side? Which and now we are starting to get into the business strategy. So happy to pause here if you feel this is going beyond the scope. But I'm just while I have you here, I wanted to get some advice from you on what would you do in that situation?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a very good question, and that's always I would say the differentiating factor for a platform. So you cannot prioritize one side over the other. Of course, based on what your platform is, there'll be some weightage, a little bit more on one side than the other, but you have to always prioritize both the sides. So I like to kind of call it like again, and it's very tricky when you are actually launching it on which site to launch first, which is always referred to as chicken and egg problem in the platform world. If you would have read some of the other blogs, that do I first go live with the producer side or do I first go live with the consumer side? Because if you don't have consumer, producers will not be attracted and vice versa. So it's very tricky to kind of have that balance determined early on, even before the launch, on which side you want to launch first, but you will have to develop features for both the sides. So I think your example was the author and the ghostwriters, right? So just building on that example, so if you don't have authors on the platform, who would writers write for, and the other way around? So you have to onboard them sequentially in the way, strategically in the way that none of the side is in lull. So maybe like you might have to give some incentives to one side first to onboard the other side, or incentives could be either monetary or some other benefits that they would get to use your platform that would attract the other side. And then you can slowly build that ratio and build that market from both the sides. Again, it doesn't have to be one-to-one mapping because it would depend on what your platform is. Sometimes it would be a ratio, say 1:5, 1:10, depending on the business type that your platform is in. But it should always be a ratio between the producer side and the consumer side.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. I think the creator economy is going to bring more and more product people into the platform space. So I'm particularly excited about where we are going as a community and how we are going to support so many sides of the market, especially the creator sides. So, with that, I'm working on a small fun project on the side for authors and ghostwriters. So that's where that question came from. So thank you for sharing that. At this point, if you have any questions, we have a few people in the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type them in to the chat box, and we'll bring you on. We'll unmute you, or we can read your questions, whatever you prefer. So feel free to ask your questions now. You have with us Tabassum, so it's we are lucky to have her here, and she will be happy to answer our questions. If you don't have any questions, while you think of your questions, I have one quick announcement for you. And even if you're watching this after the live event has ended, if you're watching this as a recorded event, I do have this incentive for you, which is I'll be offering you this. Let me share this with you real quick. So Tabassum has kindly agreed to offer a copy of her book to whoever shares a LinkedIn post of what they learned from this workshop. And in return, what you have to do is you have to write a simple post, and you have to tag Tabassum and Product Manager HQ. Don't worry about tagging me, just tag those two people. and you will get, we will choose the most engaging post for the next 30 days, and we'll be giving out 3 free copies of the book. And not only there does it end, I'll be also giving out a completely free course on tech primers for product managers. You will get a free access to my course, and it's got over 15 videos. You will get free access to that course as well. So feel free to share what you learned from the last few minutes of this discussion, last 45 minutes, and we'll be making sure to get you this thing. So make sure you tag us, otherwise we won't know that you wrote about us. And then within 30 days, we'll be identifying 3 people who got the most engagement on their post to get this book and the course for free. So thank you for that. I'll pause now. Any questions while we still have Tabassum here? Let me see. I don't see any chat, but I don't see anyone raising their hand. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there is one quick question that came through, which is, what's next for you now that you've written the book? Are you going to create a course? Are you going to write a next book? Is there a specific platform that you are intending to create with this new now that this big project is over? What is next for you, Tabassum?
So I'm definitely thinking of writing another book, because I really enjoyed writing the book and I like to share my thoughts, is what I realized. I like writing. I used to write blogs very actively, and this kind of last 1 year I stopped because I was focusing on the book. So I'll definitely write more blogs and another book, something that I have in my mind to kind of build on top of this product management book. So I will for sure write on something on product management, because that's the area that's very close to my heart, I would say. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. But and I'm focusing on Classroom Hunt, as you all know. I'll continue working on that and some other things. And I'm just opening it out. I'm also I like to coach and mentor people. So if you are interested, let me know, ping me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and let me know. I'll be happy to help the community.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tabassum. It was such a pleasure having you on this show. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for writing the book on this topic. I look forward to continue to learn from you and continue to follow your journey. Any last words? Any last thoughts?
I would say just see where the market is going for all the inspiring product managers or already experienced product managers, and be ready to adapt and change to that. Don't be rigid and firm on what you are doing or planning. Always adapt to change.
Thank you. Words of wisdom there. Take care.
Thank you, Dhaval. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Tabassum. It was an honor to have you here.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.